Okay, welcome to today's webinar around reducing your exploitable vulnerability exposure and gaining ACSC Essential 8 compliance. My name's Shane Westcott, Security Technology Evangelist with Ivanti, based down in sunny Melbourne, Victoria, Australia. And I've been with the company for just over 20 years, so I spent a lot of time working with our security products and working with customers and working around ACSC Essential 8 compliance, helping those customers with those mechanisms. So we're going to have a quick look at the agenda, talk about the challenges, what's out there. We'll talk a little bit about the changes from ACSC Essential 8. We're going to talk about the outcomes and how we can help get you there. So let's dive in. So currently, what's the challenge that's out there? If we look at the last few years, we know that most organisations have moved a lot of their staff to work everywhere. There's a lot of flexibility out there. The challenge with that, though, is that if people are working from anywhere, you can't really easily work out how secure they are, what their experience is like, and then centrally report on that. So that becomes a big challenge when you look at the guys in the C-level, the CIOs and the CISOs, because they have a lot of challenges coming at them. There is the evolving security threats that are out there, and they're growing, and we'll look at those in a tick. There's economic pressures that are always there. The war for talent is a big one in security, because if you give your security guys a fairly mundane, boring job to do, and what I would call a lot of the donkey work of managing vulnerabilities and stuff like that, if you're not automating that for them and getting them to work on strategic stuff, they will find a new role that they can work on just strategic stuff. So we need to make sure that they're doing the right sort of work and keeping them engaged so we can keep them in our organisation, helping us better our security. And digital transformation is something that's happening everywhere. So the business outcomes are very common as well between the two groups. So they're all both looking to reduce risk, they're both looking to improve productivity, and they're both looking to reduce costs. So they're the challenges that are out there, but what's happening from a risk point of view? This is a vulnerability visual that was taken from January this year. Okay, so total vulnerabilities, which ones have been weaponized, which ones are using remote code execution and privilege escalation, they're the more dangerous ones, which ones are tied to ransomware, and which ones are trending. Okay, the trending one is the most important one, tied to ransomware, obviously. So you can sort of work your way backwards from that number, protect yourself against the most exploited ones first that are actively being used, and then work your way backwards. So it's a good way to look at this graph is, where do I need to start? Don't start with 300,000, right? That's a lot, right? Start at the other end and work your way back. If we have a look at our platform, Ivanti Neurons vulnerability knowledge base, right, which is like a big database of all of the vulnerabilities that are out there, you can see that those numbers have gone up quite a bit since January. We're at 314 now. So 14,000 extra vulnerabilities in a few months. So stuff's happening out there. Things are being used, things are being developed, things are being weaponized, and that's making it more risky for all of us. In November 2023, the ACSC put some changes in. They're doing it pretty much annually, I believe, now, and I believe it's also typically going to be done in November. So that will mean people like me who keep tabs on it will have to do all the research again and rewrite our documents in December like I did last December. Some of the things they focused on this time, balancing patching timeframes, which we're going to look at, because what they did was they got a little bit less pedantic about the workstation side for OS, but they then got more pedantic about the workstation side for third party, right? Knowing that people are less efficient at their third party patching, let me put it that way, and they're not as time-based as they should be. So they're trying to push people towards that. Put some phishing stuff in there, cloud services, but for the first time they've now got requirements for people to have plans about what happens when there's an incident there. So that's the sort of thing you've got to look at if you look at the new version of the ACSC Essential 8. So let's have a look at the vulnerability management outcomes that people need. So given that those are the changes, what do we need to be doing? Here's 3 simple pillars to break it down for you. Number 1, you've got to discover the vulnerabilities, right? We're talking patching here mainly. We're really focused on that patching side. So what we're talking here is daily scans for internet-facing assets, and then fortnightly for OS, and weekly for third parties. As I said before, they've changed the cadence there between third party and OS because they know people need a bit more of a kick around the third party side, not necessarily the OS side. I talked to a lot of people about patching, and most of them do a pretty good job with the OS, but by the same token, most of them don't do a great job with third party. Okay, so it's something that people need to focus on. When we're trying to isolate the critical and exploited ones, which are the ones that we need to really focus on for ACSC compliance, when we're trying to focus on these, there's a couple of good links there I've put, which are 2 places you can register to get updates, not only from the local ACSC, but also from CISA, who hold the catalogue of the known exploited vulnerabilities. So 2 good links there to get yourself some information coming through live about what's being found out there and what's happening. When we look at remediating and reporting, right, we've got 48 hours for critical and exploited. Now that's been bumped up. It used to be just exploited, but after November, it's gone to critical or exploited, right? So it's got to be both. You've got to do the criticals, you've got to do the exploited ones. 2 weeks for all the others, right? If it's not internet facing, it's 2 weeks for critical or exploited, unless you want to go to level 3 compliance, because in that case, it does mean that for workstations and non-internet facing, you have to go to 48 hours if you're doing that level 3 compliance, which I do talk to quite a few customers about that, and people are gearing towards that for patching, because patching's probably one of the easier ones to get to for level 3 compliance. Customers might argue against that with me, but from my point of view, we know what we need to do, and it's just a cadence that we need to change what we're really doing. We're not doing anything new, we're just changing the cadence a bit, okay? And we're here to help, right? We're here to help make that as simple for everyone. Again, you can see the difference in cadence between the OS side, which is monthly, and then the third party side, which is fortnightly, okay? So they're the outcomes you're going to need. How do we help? Well, Ivanti's got a platform called Ivanti Neurons, purpose-built from the ground up for the CIO and the CISO, right? These guys need a platform that is going to show them what they need to see up front. You can change all those KPIs up the top there. I'll show you when we go into the platform what I've got mine set to, but you can change whatever you want there. It also shows you a DEX score there, so digital experience for the users, so you can keep on top of what's happening in user land, what do we need to be focusing on, all those sorts of things. And underlying that is an intelligent AI and automation platform, which can save a lot of grunt work for your staff. So it is something that is helping with manpower pressures and making sure that people have got all their information in the one spot. We've been helping with the Essential 8 since it was released in 2017, right? And we do 7 of the Essential 8. We don't do backups, so you need to talk to someone else about that. And you can see as well, we do the asset discovery and risk assessment, and I've got the level 1, 2, 3 down there. We don't, they don't typically talk level 0 anymore, but we do come across people who are dead set level 0. Not a great place to be. Right, let's have a look at how it works. My favourite bit, the demo. Let me go. Here we go. Right. Okay, let's start off by looking at good old Ivanti Neurons. Okay, so this is Ivanti Neurons right here. You can see the home page. I've got mine set with these KPIs up the top just for the stuff that I'm interested in, but there's a whole bunch of stuff you can put up there if you need something else in those KPIs, so you can have a look at the most important things to you when you go in. Let's dive right in and get into Patch Intelligence, one of my favorite pieces of neurons. I'm a big fan of Edge Intelligence and Patch Intelligence, not because I like the word intelligence, they're just awesome solutions. So with Patch Intelligence, this is like a world view of what's happening in the patch world according to us, obviously. Right, I've got no filters applied at the moment. You can see it's updated as soon as our patch catalogs get updated, things like that. So that happens pretty much every day. A bunch of stuff came out of Mac just overnight or whatever. The cool thing though is you've got smart filters. I've got a Yoda's exploited patch filter, and that one can show me in one click what's been exploited. Now all I've done for that filter is said, show me what's been exploited. Pretty simple stuff. You can see this cute little bug tells me all about what the exploit is. I can click on that. I can go into that particular vulnerability there. It shows me all the data there. I can go into the CVE piece. It'll show me, you know, what's happening there. We've got a couple of CVEs in there. You can look at all the various bits and pieces that are in that particular vulnerability. So it gives you all the deep dive data, brings it all to one spot. Interestingly enough, if you look at these two here, they're both security important, but from our perspective, they've been exploited, so they need to be done in 48 hours. This one we rate as a high with our proprietary VRR, vulnerability risk rating. So that's Ivanti's own risk rating based on over 100 feeds. And we will look at what's happening right now based on feedback from things like pen testers and people who are helping customers who have been compromised, right? So that one's critical, but that one's high. Okay, so you can see the difference there between those two. Part of it's based on the CVSS, but you'll see things with a low CVSS that we will still rate critical because they're actively being exploited, right? Again, this vendor severity rating comes from the vendor when they release it. They don't go and change that if it starts getting used to attack people, right? So that's where your VRR comes in. So with one click, I've got everything that's been exploited. I could also set up a smart filter for my vendor. And that can, with one click, again, I can now get everything that the vendor says is security critical. So cool thing here is I can grab those bits and pieces, right? So I can grab a few of those if that's what I want to do. I could export them as CVEs. I could export the selected patches. I could export a list of the selected patches, a list of the CVEs for the selected patches, everything like that I can do. Or if I've got Ivanti Neurons for patch management, I can say add to a patch group, bang, and it gets pushed out, okay? So very cool there with our ability to do some nice and easy things and then, you know, do some work to get those critical and 48-hour ones patched nicely and quickly. Now, the other thing I did want to show you is a CVE upload. Not sure whether you have a security department that sends a scan from, you know, Tenable, Rapid7, Qualys, whatever, over the fence and says, hey, go and patch these, right? Somebody's got to do that research. Here's one I created earlier in the way of all good cooking shows. So I'm going to open that up. Once I've opened that up, it's now going to give me a list of all of those patches that match those CVEs. So I don't have to do the translation myself. Now you can see it's matched 43 out of 73. The fish that John West rejected down here, so there's 30 down here. So I can go back to the security team and say, hey, these 30 here, I'm not going to patch. So they might be other things that you need to look after. For example, this one here, CVE 2024-3400, I know that's Palo Alto. Okay, so that's a Palo Alto update on a networking device. So the networking device team is going to go and do that, not the guys who do the patching on the endpoints. Okay, so you've got the ability to export that as well. You can export that list and say, hey, here's the ones that we're not going to do because they're physically not in the patch catalog or they're not patchable by us. They could be things like, you know, a port needs to be shut down, so it's a firewall rule or something like that. Okay, so once we've got that in there, again, we could then create a patch group from that and we can send it out as a bunch of patches. Nice and simple. Right, that's enough of patch intelligence. Oh, the other thing I didn't show you, let me just get rid of that. I didn't show you that you can, when you've got patch data coming in, you can have a look at the patch intelligence view around your environment. So it'll show you what is relevant to your environment, okay? And once you do that, you'll have a really, really good idea of where you are lacking things. You can even go into the endpoints. If you have the column selected to say, show me the ones that are missing, you can click on that endpoint and you can push the patch out directly right now, instantly, not waiting for a schedule. So it gives you that ability to do patching ad hoc when it's an emergency, okay? Now, if we look at endpoint vulnerability, part of Ivanti Neurons for patch management, this is a great report as well, because this shows us and highlights the devices by risk level. These ones are exploited. These ones are critical. These ones are important, okay? I can see my endpoints that have missing patches. The higher score means more risk. Okay, so obviously these ones here, these exploited ones, if I just hook on those three, you're going to see that those endpoints have a fairly high risk score because they're missing patches that have been exploited. And again, they're the ones we need to get done. 48 hours is a great way to look at that. If you're doing level 3, you need to do that. If you're not doing level 3, I'd still recommend you get them done pretty fast because, you know, you don't want those sort of things lying around there in the wild on your architecture. So let me just quickly go into here and show you our compliance reporting as well. I'll just grab one of these. This shows you a group of devices, and you can set this up for any group of devices you like. And then what you can do is you can show people where you are with your compliance over time. Right, so you can see there we've got a couple of gaps that's gone down and stayed up quite high for a while. You can set a threshold that you want to be above or below, and you can report on that as well. And you can send that to people so they get track of that. So some great reporting in there with our compliance tracking. Okay, that's enough around good old Ivanti Neurons for patch management. That's the full SaaS solution. Wanted to show you that one. What I now want to spend a couple of minutes talking about is our Ivanti Neurons Vulnerability KB, right? This is the one I showed you from the screen grabs. And again, you'll notice that, you know, those numbers have gone up quite a bit since January, okay? This has an open dashboard, which also tells us a little bit about the scanners that we might use, the vulnerability scanners, things like Tenable, Qualys, and Rapid7. We've got 3 of those listed separately, because what we're showing here is we're showing this is what's out there in the wild in vulnerabilities, and this is what those scanners are scanning for. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing that they're doing less than what's out there, because they'll focus, pardon me, on certain types of devices, right? So, for example, Tenable, Rapid7, Qualys, probably not going to go and scan building architecture. But if you look up in the vulnerabilities, and if we went to a vendor, for example, you'd be able to look at the vendor called Honeywell, for example, who do systems inside buildings. Okay, they have vulnerabilities like everyone else, right? But they're not necessarily scored or scanned for by Tenable, Rapid7, Qualys. That's why there's a difference in that number. If we drill into vulnerabilities here, a couple of quick things to show you. You're able to create user views. User views are very good because you can tailor them to yourself. I've got one called Trending Exploited Vulns, right? So that gives me a list of all the trending exploited vulnerabilities. Cool thing about that, I can click on the share button, I can send someone a URL, and they can click on that URL and go straight into my report and see what I've set up for them. We also have a bunch of system reports in there, and these are the ones that the guys in our team and girls will develop for our customers. CSC known exploited, Patch Tuesday, they're all done as things come out, right? HTTP2 rapid reset. So as there's a threat that comes out, we're going to develop a system view for that. So in one click, we can get that whole view of what's happening. You can click on that, and then it'll show you all of the CSC known exploited vulnerabilities that are out there. Okay, so very cool to be able to get that in one piece. The thing I love about that too is I can go up to our notifications and have this set up. I'll show you this. I'm not a programming guy, so this, if I'm able to do this, it's pretty simple and anyone can do it. But I've used a webhook to hook the notifications into my Teams channel. So let me quickly show you that, because it's something that a lot of customers like. And here it is, right? So this is my test channel, and there's my risk-based vulnerability management notifications that come through. You can see these ones mostly come through updates to Patch Tuesday there. So they changed Patch Tuesday, and CSC known exploited. So you can see that's 1097, then it goes up to 1098. These figures here are from my vulnerability data for my environment that I've uploaded. So you'll get the filter, but you'll also get, hey, here's how that filter impacts your technology. Here's the open vulnerabilities you've got that are relevant to that filter. And that gives you a really good point to start from to look at what's coming in. Okay. Right. The only other thing I did want to mention here, and it's something that certainly our government customers are quite interested in, is the ability to do things like, and look at things like APT, Advanced Persistent Threat Filters, which are, again, created by our team to make it easy for customers to look at what's happening out there in the world. So there's APT groups, there's a stack of them there. They all have their own different name and different numerical sequence. APT 41 and APT 40 are typically the ones that are attacking Australia and New Zealand quite a lot. So again, you've got the ability to look at the 3 vulnerabilities that you're using that they're trying to attack different countries with. Okay, so if you're in the infrastructure world or the government world, and you've got to be mindful of these APT groups because they're attacking your industry, then what you need to do is just one click, once you find the name of the group, and you'll be able to protect against them by just exporting the CVEs, turn it into patches, and away you go. So nice and simple stuff there.